Welcome to Open BXRx on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, inviting you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Through digital and print archives, Bronx Narratives is reinventing our borough one story at a time. The team has an upcoming event called Virtual Night in the Bronx, celebrating and recognizing our Bronx community during these trying times. Joining us now to discuss their mission, upcoming event, and more are Dondre Green and Decota Letman of Bronx Narratives. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
To start off, I just want to learn about Bronx Narratives for our viewers that may not be familiar and your mission.
Wow. Long story, short story. What do we tell Decota?
Where do we start? Well, Sanji, you had asked us off camera, or you was telling us a little story off camera about you. So the way Bronx Narrative started was actually born out of similar sentiments. So I guess for everyone watching, Dondre and I met completely random at a event, I want to say about 6 years ago. It was a music event in Williamsburg, of course, not in the Bronx. We randomly just started chopping it up, talking about living in the same community. So we actually live a few blocks apart in the North Bronx section. And we're like, yo, how is it possible that here we are in Williamsburg and we link up and connect and we're from the same area of the Bronx, both creatives in our own right, ended up splitting an Uber home that night. And this is where it was like, it was divine intervention of the universe. Our Uber driver ended up actually being from the Bronx, and he's the one that it was super crazy. He had so much like love and pride, and Dre and I were just randomly casually talking. We're like, yeah, we should do something. I don't know what that something is, but we should do something, make something happen, and create a space where we shift that narrative. And our other co-founder had similar story to meeting Dre as well. And then I guess I'll let Dre finish up like that other half of the story. And then
Yes. So I met Hoy Smith, who's our art director in Brooklyn. And I was at a friend's house and they were like, someone's coming from the Bronx. I was like, oh, we're in the Bronx, like Wakefield. I was like, he's going to be late. And he comes and we're just talking and there's just like a natural Bronx connection. And I think I told him about the project a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I'm down to get shot for it. And so I took photos of him in his neighborhood. And shortly after, he's like, yo, if you need design help, like I'm here to offer my services like for free, like let me know. So it's like, fine, let's do that. And naturally we just meet up at Panera Bread.
Yeah.
And Quad City, like religiously, almost like every week, once a week, just to talk about the project. And then we did a documentary going around the Bronx an entire day, different neighborhoods, just like asking people their thoughts, and a photo essay project that birthed Bronx Narratives in 2015.
Wow, I love it. It was all mutual, just love for the Bronx. And thanks to the cab driver. Shout out to the cab driver, wherever he is.
I wonder if he would actually remember us if he ever saw this interview.
Yeah, you should go back to your Uber receipts or something.
Oh, I can't go back that far. So true.
Maybe.
Maybe, right? I don't know.
Look what was born from that night, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up, back in May, the team recorded We're in This Together on BXN Radio, which is the Bronx Narratives podcast. So much has changed since then. How is the team balancing projects and life today?
Yeah, I would say because we've been a remote group for quite some time, we all have like different obligations outside of Bronx Narratives, that it's actually lends itself to like make us become a little bit closer. So when we start like our group team conferences via Google video, like we're asking like, how are you? Like, let's break that down. We've done like a happy hour where we could check in and just talk about life, nothing Bronx Narratives related. And then there's also still like the magazine that's still happening, and it gives me time to like work on merchandise and like look at Bronx Narratives from another glimpse.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you, Dondre, you're an incredible photographer, and Decota is a foodie, and you're both engaged with the community. You're very engaged with the community, and the entire team just celebrated the issue 4 drop. Was that the last event that BXN had before the whole COVID thing happened?
Yes, it was actually. We had, it was, right? Our last magazine release. Yeah, in January, I want to say. And we had a bunch of events planned for this year, which is so funny because we were like, oh, how are we going to reinvent ourselves in 2020? Let's just come back with something different. And we were like thinking about dropping or just curating a bunch of events each quarter or each month. And things happened. COVID happened. So we had to pause, reflect, and just like try to figure everything else out and just see what is the best approach.
I hear that. Now, I want to take the opportunity to scroll down your feed on screen with our viewers to highlight the beauty that lives there. To me, Bronx Narratives is emotive and it's always familiar. It's home and it's on a screen for me. Home is on a screen through Bronx Narratives. Through your contributors and your work, you've kept the momentum going. So thank you for that. Would you say that photography is an essential work for the Bronx, especially during these times of civil unrest and, you know, during documenting protest and photographing our borough through these tough times?
I would definitely say, yeah. Photography, and then I think Dre can really speak to this because he is a photographer, but just like as a viewer and not being a photographer looking on the outside in, I think that just for one, that's our platform. Like that is our basis and our foundation because our name is Bronx Narratives and we narrate different stories about our borough, not only like verbally or through written communication, but through our photos. And all of our photos tell a story. So I think that despite everything that's been going on, not only in the Bronx, but in this country, in the world, and in New York, we kind of had a duty to continue showing and telling this story. But again, Dre can speak more from the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with what Decota said. I think visually, it's nice when you post something and it's like a neighborhood like Simpson Ave and people are like, oh, I live there. Or like,
yeah,
I remember being there 6 years ago. So there's like a sense of nostalgia to it. I think as things change, it's also good just to see what was this place before. And since we started in 2015 doing events in the South Bronx, so much has changed. Like looking back at some of those images or events we did, like some of these places don't exist anymore. So there's a importance of like, I feel like Bronx Narratives is like an archival vehicle, and we are leaning more into like preserving a lot of these stories more than ever. And I see the importance so much, and I'm learning too. So it's fun.
Thank you for that. I wanted to learn also how Bronx Narratives is helping keep us connected while being apart through your posts, protest photos, COVID care packs, podcasts, music. You guys do it all. Can you just give us more background about that?
How are we keeping? I would say just like really dialing into community. I've been personally like trying to listen to the streets, and by the streets are like synonymous with like Twitter these days, right? Like the streets is Twitter, but just trying to figure out like what are people caring about, what do they value right now. And in the beginning it wasn't so much merchandise because COVID was just a big thing and people were losing jobs, so we weren't trying to market that as a big thing. And then I just think things have changed so much since, where like Black businesses are, you know, viewed with very important. So I think it's just keeping an eye on what's happening right now. I'm sure, Decota, you have anything to add?
For me, I remember when we actually had the conversation when we had to decide whether or not we're going to cancel all of our in-person events that we had for the year. And we were trying to figure out a happy medium on what's too much with connecting with our community and what's too little, because we wanted to be mindful of like what was going on without overloading and being insensitive, right? And not just having a personal agenda for the group or for the collective. So I'm happy we were able to find this happy medium, like a nice balance between the care packages and the music and just sharing those photos. So yeah, I want to say like basically us being able to share without oversharing and without being insensitive to everything happening and just with our community. I think that was like the main point or reasoning behind that, or the thought process. Yeah.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about the upcoming event, a virtual night in the Bronx. What is it, and what should we be looking forward to? Tell us all.
Okay. So picking back off of like the previous question, and that's just figuring out what's too much and what's too little. Should we do the IG lives because that was the new wave in this virtual world? Should we chill? We were like, well, what do we think about doing a virtual event? Like, we do have to kind of keep the momentum going without being too insensitive. And as Dre mentioned, we have our monthly calls, like our team calls, where we just check in and we bounce ideas off of each other. And we're like, all right, well, why don't we do a virtual show? It's something we were planning anyway, except it wouldn't have been virtual. Like, why don't we do a virtual concert, a virtual series? So I'm not sure if people had a chance to see the, I want to say, Global Citizen virtual show or virtual concert. And it was like amazing because it made you feel together like that. It was like togetherness, all these artists, all these folks on the front lines and communities that just all over the world, globally connected. So we were like, why don't we do something like that for us? Like here in the borough, just really highlight Bronx talent, Bronx musicians, Bronx artists, visual artists, photographers, dancers, and then just community goers. And let's get our photographers and these photos out there and just curate something that people can feel this love, like we can feel the community. And I will say that we have so much amazing talent coming out of our borough. So that was like the main thought process behind it, is really showcasing some of the talent and continue to put those folks on the map, and just do this together and just like really just enjoy it. And I think that is something that folks will enjoy watching. So that is a virtual night in the Bronx, and it is happening next Wednesday, I want to say July 15th. So folks can tune in.
Are you guys all booked up? You have all the artists selected and everything like that, line up, all that good stuff without giving too much away?
Yeah, we are. Everything is all concealed and ready to go, entering the editing stages. So it should be fun to see how people react to it.
Yeah.
I also wanted to put the Bronx Picks playlist out there. You guys have a curated list of music on, I believe, Spotify, where you put in
Apple Music.
artists in Apple Music. So just a little bit more background on that for any Bronx artists that are listening and want to put their music out there with you.
Yeah, it came from just, I guess, thinking about how can we feature more of diverse audiences. So like we feature a lot of photographers, our magazines, a lot of visual artists, and there's a lot of great musicians, and the Bronx is known for its music and hands to hip hop. So I think I was sitting down one day, I was like, well, we should do like Bronx Picks. And this was during COVID, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from there, it's just been good to see how artists react to it. Finding new artists. There's so many different people releasing so much music on so many different platforms. So it's been fun just like figuring out what will sound good collectively, what artists I haven't featured, what genres are people doing, and staying on top of everything.
Got you. And before we go, I wanted to discuss Bronx Narratives merch a little bit. All the merch is really dope, but one of your new drops spoke to me, and it read, "Stop convincing people how great the Bronx is." Can you break this quote down for us and just a little bit of background on it?
Yeah, sure. So first, all the merchandise is designed in-house via me or Hoy, the art director. And with that particular bag, I just been thinking about statements. So like the Bronx taught me, how that really resonated, and it's our most popular item. And then with Stop Convincing People how great the Bronx is, I've just been thinking about how many times we've had to defend the Bronx to people who will probably never ever come here or never have any like real interest. Right. And I was like, well, I know how great this is and it's peaceful. I don't need to keep sharing this with people. Like in our work, yes, like we do want to switch the narrative so that they see it. But I find that like a lot of people have not been here. When I asked them, like, have you ever been here? No, I saw it in a movie or like I heard it on Twitter, and like,
was it the Joker?
Yeah, it's like, come on, you could do better than that, So yeah, I just think people, Bronxites, we don't need to convince people how great our Bronx is,
Let me go cop that. Let me go cop that real quick. Just for folks to know how to attend the virtual night. I don't think that's out yet, but I know that they can follow your Instagram at Bronx Narratives. I don't know if you want to give that out yet. But about how to support you, connect with you, and donate, or cop the merch, whatever. Just give us more info on that, how people can support you.
Well, for starters, they definitely can follow us at Bronx Narratives across all social platforms, and then bronxnarratives.com to check out the website and to purchase merch. And honestly, we're all accessible. We're all accessible and easy to chat with, and we're very responsive on Instagram, however you choose to reach out to us. So if you do reach out or follow us, we'll be sure to respond and engage.
Thank you. Thank you both, Decota and Dondre, for joining us today and for making the space.
Thank you, Sonyi.
Of course. So, folks, a virtual night in the Bronx will be taking place on Wednesday, July 15th at 7 p.m. To find out where and how you can tune in, you can follow at Bronx Narratives on Instagram to stay posted on more information. Also, as Decota said, visit bronxnarratives.com to support, donate, check out the merch, and all that good stuff. Open BXRx, we'll be right back.